Speaking of a heavy hitter, though, moving into Nancy Drew, which, if you haven't been sitting down, you've been standing up and listening to us, grab a chair because this review is going to feel a lot like our reviews of The Flash season 9. And I can't say I'm sorry about that because it's really just how we feel. This was a messy episode. And not in a like fun way. It was like, was this when y'all got the call the show was canceled type of way? That's what's going on with this review. Michael, how about you start, since I feel like I'm going to be here and you might at least be here.
Wait, can I quickly preface that I did not watch the episode because I was busy. I do plan on watching it, but I wanted to hear. We did an out of context one in episode season 3, so I was like, let's do this again. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Reed, get in the car. Let's go on a journey because
I'm buckled up.
this is going to be something. Yeah. I honestly don't know where to begin with this because feel like we have so many swirling thoughts about every arc that played out in the episode. Of course, we could maybe start with the main one, which is Nancy being kidnapped by the glasses and the Sin Eater sacrifice that could hopefully save Tristan's life. But my biggest problem with the episode, we're trying to save Tristan's life. This man is dying, but
Still?
he also
Well,
I mean, that's the plot of the episode. He's going to die if no one saves Nancy, or if no one saves him. At Nancy's obviously the sacrifice that's supposed to save him. Our guy wasn't even in the episode. Now, how do you take that seriously?
What?
No.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
No.
How do they explain that? Weren't they kidnapped together?
His parents said that he was off. They had him recuperating, like from what was happening, and it's like, sure, okay, fine. Then we just go on with the rest of the episode as Nancy's like, in fact, the previous episode ended and you think you're going to get an episode where like maybe her dads are going to spend the whole thing looking for her, or maybe Tristan and her are going to work together to try to convince his parents not to sacrifice her. I mean, because they did spend the previous episode going, we're soulmates, yay, like, and that didn't happen. In fact, Michael, how did you feel about the fact that we really got out of that plot fast? Like Ryan saves her and that's it. Like, as far as what, I mean, she still almost gets sacrificed, but it just, as far as the rescuing part, we did that quickly.
Very quickly. At first you were like, oh wait, because Nancy asked one of Nancy's final requests was that she asked Mr. Glass, don't know that man's name. She asked Mr. Glass if she could see what the sin that she was supposed to have washed away is, and he used whatever artifact it was, and she started seeing it, and she saw fire, but it was instantly interrupted because Ryan showed up like Batman, burst through the door, through a smoke pellet, broke this man's arm, and grabbed Nancy and pulled her out of there. And I was like, this has been 30 seconds. I have no idea what to feel about this. It just came so quickly.
It happened in the beginning of the episode?
So, yeah, right. I think it was the first scene, wasn't it? Nancy came too. She asked for this request. Shelby left. She knew that the father he was easier to break. So Nancy was like, show me. He went to show her. And then as soon as she saw those flames, Ryan burst in, saved her, pulled her out. Credits hit. And I was like, I have no idea what to feel like this. I was overwhelmed in 30 seconds.
I apologize if this is getting ahead of the episode, but do we know what she was erasing?
Not yet,
but we know what it could mean.
I was so mad about the reveal. Let's just skip ahead a little bit.
Yeah, that's it.
Reed, so do you remember I think you were saying that the ghost storyline has to connect to whatever it is that Nancy supposedly did. It does connect to whatever Nancy supposedly did, and Ace is involved too somehow. The explanation seems to be that potentially the both of them were either present or responsible for the death of the ghost in the morgue.
Oh no, I hate being right.
It doesn't, like, it connects, but it's also Nancy's like, this is why you're so close to the ghost and why she attached to you in the morgue, because like but you think that you might have killed her, so she's attached to her murderer.
When?
Is that what we're saying?
Attached how?
Emotionally attached. We went full ghost love story this episode too.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I didn't like that because the ghost said yes. I don't know who I am. I don't remember anything about my life, but I know I've never felt this way about anyone or anything before. I was like, really? You don't know anything about your former life, but you've never felt like this about a person you met maybe well, no, knowing Nancy Drew's timeline 4 hours ago, really. And yes, of course, is getting attached because he's never felt like this about anyone since Nancy. Like, dude, chill, it's been like 4 weeks, 2 weeks, one day, who knows with this timeline. Yeah, they didn't have enough time to make that feasible, in my opinion.
Wait. So, no. Okay, continue.
So, like, the chemistry is really doing the heavy lifting.
Very much so.
Between
Like-
Alex and Kennedy?
No, between Alex and the woman who plays the ghost.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, like it's really they have great chemistry. It's the only thing that's selling it right now. Like the dialogue is not doing it for me because he's standing like we see her again, but she's usually in the first parts of the episode. She appears blurry in the background, looking like an angel, and he's like talking to her through a radio. It's very much giving Mike and 11 from Stranger Things, and they're just communicating with one another. And he's just like, I just feel like I can just talk to you. It's just so nice to be able to talk to someone. And I'm like, that's great, but y'all are almost giving hopelessly like in love, and you've been talking for 72 hours, which is just amazing.
I mean, we can't say what putting your arms into a freezing sink of water does to a person.
Well,
We
that's
can't
true.
say.
Oh, but they were able to touch this episode,
Yeah.
and
Okay,
very
confusing.
yeah. Well, so after we should probably talk about the Seder first because it happens after the Seder, right, Michael?
Yeah.
So Ace's big plot this episode is that he has to lead the Seder. And his father is like, I don't know if he's ready. And he's micromanaging in the background, but Ace is like, I can do it. So Ace spends a good part of the episode speaking with Miss Ghost and explaining to her about the Seder and what it's why it's important and the things that he has to do. And then they all sit to have the Seder with Nancy not invited, interesting enough. And he's leading it and whatnot, but Nancy spent her time, she stole his ID. So because she needs to talk to the ghost because she believes that she's responsible for the ghost's death. So while he's trying to lead the dinner and lead everyone through the questions and the portions of the Seder.
In the claw, by the way. In the claw of all places.
Yes. Because that's according to Ace's mom, that's his house. And as the head of that, since he's the head of the claw, since that's his house, we were really stretching. I was like, what set do we not have?
Yeah, they were like, we didn't have the money to keep Ace's house set up. We had Nancy's house and we can never remember the name of her castle.
Oh, Icarus Hall.
Icarus Hall. God, I almost said I don't know what I almost said. And the claw. They're like, we have 3 sets.
Yeah,
I love when final seasons do this though, because it's so funny when they're like getting married somewhere random and it's like, oh, you just didn't want to do it, you couldn't afford outside and you were trying not to be photographed. Oh my god, I love TV so much. It's so fun. Okay, continue.
Especially when you can see it. And you're probably right, because like Carson was there, Bess and George were there, everybody was there, but Nancy wasn't. Jean was there as well, Miss Jean. They literally had every single person there attending at the claw, even though the claw didn't mean anything to these people. So yeah, but of course Nancy didn't get an invite because plot.
Yes.
They've got to be losing money at the claw though, because the amount of times that they just close it for supernatural shenanigans and whenever they want is like, they gotta be in the red.
You would think, but so they're doing the Seder and it's lovely. It truly, like, we have
favorite scene of the episode. Yeah,
and everyone is being respectful and they're sitting and they're listening, and they're learning as Ace leads them through the dinner, and then in comes Nancy like a whirlwind because she's figured out how she needs to do whatever. She's gonna call the ghost because the ghost came with Ace to the claw because apparently she's not attached to the morgue anymore for reasons. It's and as she's doing this, the ghost freaks out. And suddenly we have like a storm, like a gale force winds going through the Seder. And Reed, when you said you loved it, this was peak comedy. Ace's mom is like, is it me or is there a breeze? And her hair is like blowing over her face. Like, man, it's more than a breeze. And then the power goes out and everything is still blowing. And he's like, I don't know what's happening. It's like clearly supernatural things are happening.
Yeah. And they're all like shouting at each other. Yes, I think you're making it worse. And you're like, it's these people think it's a breeze. They really turned a really tasteful, nice scene into like comedy, and I don't know whether it was successful for the right reason. Don't get me wrong, we were laughing at it, but we're like, come on now. Because Ace suggested it might have been a fan at the back. So when Ace went out and it got worse, they're like, Ace, I think you're making it worse. Like, you really thought this was a breeze of all things. Like, people are blowing around the dining room, everything's falling off. Carson and Jean are having an argument and shouting at each other. And mess.
It's just a mess. And they were supposed to be on Moses. That is where we were at, because his mom was like, I guess they were at the soup portion of the Seder, and she asked George, well, no, she asked Bess, do they have better bowls? And so he was really trying to tell the story. It's about the parting of the Red Sea, I believe. And then in comes like all of this. And so you get a nice argument because he realizes that that's Nancy in the back messing with his ghost girlfriend. And he's like, leave her alone. And then she's like, I have to solve the mystery. So he's like, if you do that, then she passes on. And I don't want her to do that because this is the most I've felt since us. And I was like, what?
We're doing it again.
We're doing it again. As like it just as like y'all are at a place where you're arguing with your pseudo ex, about your current flame who's dead. Like not even like undead. She's
Minor
just
detail.
not here.
Did they resolve that? Did they help her pass on?
Not yet. That's what the episode ends with, her coming to see Ace to let him know, like, we have to, I think we're responsible. I think that's why she's connected to you. I think we're tied to it because the timestamp on her picture down at the Senator's mirror is 20 minutes after she got off the phone with Ace. And she thinks Ace might have been with her. If you remember that episode, she was standing in front of her mystery board. So she must have figured something out and might have called him again so they could both go investigating, because then that episode they had investigated together anyway. So I don't know. The ties are there, but they're loose. They're not tight. So I don't know how that's going to work. But I do know that people are excited to see Nancy and Ace investigate again. That's what all the tweets were last night. I'm trying to see how this story, like, how did y'all end up killing somebody?
I feel like just based on like emotional stakes, it feels like, and of course I haven't seen the episode, but it feels like this Ace plot could have happened sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would have carried far more weight and had more legs if it did. We wouldn't have been sitting watching it. Like, no, as Sabrina said, Ace and the Ghost, great chemistry, super cute. But you're sitting watching their scenes almost like on a clock, thinking there's 2 episodes left. Why are we doing this now? And it would have been far much more fulfilling to watch it earlier. It's the same the way they've only really pulled the trigger on Nancy and Tristan now, and yet we were completely on board with this early on because a distraction's fun. We like a distraction every now and again, and yet they waited until the last 5 episodes to really make it go. So it feels like everything's kind of falling apart a little bit because they ran them all together, and now they've literally nothing's been resolved. We've 2 episodes left. Everything's up in the air. Nancy and Ace think they've killed someone and used the Sin Eater to wash away their sins before they figured out it was actually Tristan. So of course the fans were right. Their 2 other halves, their new flames, are now tied into their overall arc. But like, where do we go from here? We have 2 episodes left.
I know. And so when you have that great moment between Ace and the Ghost where she materializes and he's like, how can you do that? And she's like, I think because of the power of, was she inferring that's the power of their connection to one another?
I think so.
Okay, because
Can everyone see her? Not to interrupt. I just forgot to ask that before.
No. Yeah, she wasn't talking to Bess, right? In the previous episode. Like, Bess was like, I can't get in. She couldn't hear her. Things were just moving, but she couldn't hear her.
Yeah, and then in this episode, she was going to start appearing to us, and the minute was it Bess or Nancy walked in, she disappeared. So maybe the other people would be able to see her if she showed herself, but it seems to be that she doesn't want anyone to see her other than us, or it's just the power of her connection means that he can see her and nobody else can.
But they can touch now, Reed. And it was, I thought the beat was too long. We were there for a while with this finger touch, but they were finger touching, and
they touched fingers.
Yeah, it was giving
just like ET.
Yeah, Yeah.
And
Though
then
I
it slowly went into the hands, and there was like a moment where they just like stood and looked and looked and looked and looked, and then we cut away.
I
yeah.
know. Nancy and Ace fans, I'm sorry. Like, I know that's got to be brutal. They had the candlelight scene with Nancy and Tristan last episode. Now they got, oh, it's rough. Sorry about that.
Oh, even rougher. I forgot. So you remember in the opening, in the text messages from the premiere, I think he wanted to invite Nancy to say this Seder, and he had said he'd always wanted to bring a date. He didn't invite Nancy to the Seder. He invited the ghost as his date. No one else knows she's there but Bess. But like he was like, "Do you want to go?" Like, and then she does. She just hangs out in the freezer with him as he's preparing for the thing. She just follows him all over the claw. Wherever he is, she is. And I'm just like, I know that hurt. Like for shippers, because you would think this would have been the episode that he would have been like, I'd always wanted you to come. Are you going to come? And then we're not together. But that's not what he did. He didn't invite her at all. And Carson felt weird about it. Carson's like, oh, I thought, she was invited.
Yeah,
but
why
she's
is
not.
Carson there and Nancy's not?
Because Ace's parents invited him and Jean.
Interesting.
I feel like, Sabrina, should we talk then about Carson and Jean then? Is that a good point to bring that up?
Oh no.
It is.
Oh no.
Okay, so what cliche read could they have possibly given these two if you think about TV?
Is she pregnant?
Got it, Noel.
Yeah.
No. Oh Lord. Oh, I
Yeah.
need to lie down.
Yes. So Nancy goes to track down was it EMT, Michael? Or who had been with the ghost. Not the ghost when she was alive, but like it was
I can't believe it. I'm sorry. Okay, I had to get that out.
Yeah, well, she went to a hospital in Trenton, and lo and behold, Jean was there, and Nancy was like, "Why are you here?" She's like, "Bunions. I have a bunion." And she's like, Trenton has like the best podiatrists in wherever, and it was really awkward. And then Nancy looked at the sign, and where Jean came from is not where the podiatrist is, but she didn't ask any questions.
I know. Why does anybody try lying to Nancy Drew's face? Like, what have we learned in a year?
Yeah, right. And so Carson was like, well, this morning I don't remember seeing anything on her foot, but okay. When Nancy was talking to him, because she didn't know her dad didn't know that she went to go check her bunions. So at the Seder, Carson, just being the loveliest boyfriend, was like, you can slip your shoes off, right? They say that at a Seder you're supposed to be comfortable, and I know you have the bunion. So so just slip your shoe off and be comfortable. And she's like, what are you talking about?
See, I don't want to take my shoes off. I'm fine.
I know. So then they're just arguing, and then she yells, I'm pregnant. But like by the time she does, the wind has died down. So everyone heard it. Even Nancy.
And at that point, Nancy had already known though, right? Or she just suspected?
I don't know what she suspected. I mean, it's either life-threatening illness or pregnancy. You only got two options there.
Yeah, there was kind of that awkward moment where after Jean, I thought Jean was a little mean to Carson because he kept going on about the bunions. I was like, yes, but you started this lie. That sweet man only wanted her to be so comfortable. My feet are fine. Leave my feet alone. Leave me alone. And then because she shouted, I'm pregnant at him just as the wind died down and everyone heard it, she stormed out. And I mean, I understand that she didn't want to announce that in front of everyone, but I was like, it's not Carson's fault. Bless him. All he wanted to do was make sure you were fine and comfortable. And then Nancy had that awkward moment where she walked in and was like, I'm guessing it's not bunions. It's like, okay, did you not hear that?
More like bun in the oven. Sorry,
Right.
that was a bad dad joke.
But and so then they have an awkward conversation where Carson and Jean are discussing this pregnancy, and he's like, well, I know it's your decision. She's like, yeah, I know that, but I want to factor how you feel in too, because you raised Nancy. She's grown, you have all this freedom, and now you wouldn't. And I was like, and then she said something about, it seemed like she was very stuck on the freedom part. And I was like, Jean, what are you trying to say? Are you saying you don't want this pregnancy, but you haven't gotten there yet? Are you saying you do want the pregnancy? And you want Carson to be there, but you're not sure if Carson is going to be. I mean, both of you are on a relationship though, and he's not the type of dude to be like, I'm not going to be involved. So with 2 episodes left, I'm like, why did we get this in? Because now I'm like, what are we doing?
I'm more concerned with how Nancy would feel because that has to be troubling that her adoptive father is having a biological child.
Right.
Possible if she's gotten there, but there's also the big age gap. Then the fact that like her she her mom and her wouldn't have a tie to this baby. Um, how does she feel about her dad having another kid with another woman? This was his first outing
She's got
into
a
the
lot
dating
to
world.
between that and everything else, there's a lot to cover in 2 episodes.
Yeah, I
Maybe
Um,
she'll just surprise us and be like, cool, a sibling, fun.
and we don't
maybe.
even know if she knows now because she did make that awkward joke when she came out, and everyone did hear it. But did Nancy hear it? Did Nancy not hear it? We never followed up on that because Nancy was so worried about her own life because the glasses had planted like a paralytic in her spine that if she didn't turn up to the place where they wanted her to sacrifice Tristan, she would be paralyzed and then die.
Good Lord.
So she was trying to figure this out. I guess we should get back to the main plot before we wrap up.
Oh no, don't bamboozle me again.
She had to turn. Didn't like this. Tristan texted her, being like, "Got away from my folks. Meet me." And she was like, "Tristan." Ran out to meet him. I was like, "Come on
Oh,
now, come on now."
She knows it could possibly be Tristan, girl.
Yeah, of course. Because the text said "meet me," she instantly thought of the seashell that said "meet me," which remember the glasses spotted the other day. So of course they knew or manipulated her using those words. She ran out and was like Tristan, and then Shelby came out of nowhere. And she was, "No, please!" And Shelby activated the paralytic. She was down. She could not move. So then they like tied her to like some kind of ritualistic sacrifice board in the ground in that little spot of the woods that everybody literally is in whenever they want to do a storyline in the woods. Meanwhile, Bess tried to break into the historical society to get, what is it, a device that would repel the sin eater.
Mhm.
And that horrible woman,
Callie.
Callie, who now runs the historical society, was going to call the police. But long story short, Reed, remember the cabin in the woods that was taking the photos of the people who washed away their sins? It turns out that was Callie's family who owned the cabin, and she was using that as a bit of a side hustle to blackmail the people who had washed away their sins to extort them for some money. Ryan discovered this. So basically, when she tried to call the police on Bess, they came to an understanding that it turns out that she wants to protect the sin eater, Callie, wants to protect the sin eater so that she can continue to extort people who wash away their sins. So she helped the Drew crew stop the glasses, save Nancy's life by using a device. Yes, the sin eater, by the way, showed up doing like an exorcist walk and almost took a big chunk out of Nancy's neck. But right as that happened, Callie showed up with the repellent. It repelled the sin eater away. Everybody's saved. They all live happily ever after. No, not really. But now Shelby is like, not Shelby, what's that woman's name? Callie is like, the sin eater's mine. I got rid of the glasses for trying to mess with it. If you try to mess it, your fate will go the same way. So now it turns out the glasses aren't the big bad of the season. Callie's the big bad of the season, even though we thought Callie was a hero in this episode because she saved Nancy's life. It's just, remember what I said earlier on about Whiplash? All this stuff's happening. It looks cool on paper. It all happens in the space of 5 minutes that you're left thinking, I felt nothing about that at all.
sounds confusing.
Well, it is, but also, so there's that, and then there's like the glasses aren't even the one they're sacrificing Nancy, but it's Tristan who has to actually kill her, which he doesn't know that because he's been transformed. So it's like there when his mom went, one day you'll understand, it's like one day he's going to understand that in order to save him, you made him kill the girl he likes. That's
Yeah.
that's the thing that he's gonna understand one day. Like we went full on toxic parent. Like I just don't. And then with Callie, I felt like the reveal that she actually does believe in the supernatural and is she's suddenly all about money because the historical society is now a gift shop where she's selling keychains and postcards. And you remember how she stood up in front of everybody and she was just like, these things need to be under lock and key. Like Bess is like putting the kids in danger. George's sister and George's sister's girlfriend are just stealing these books from a bookcase. That's just, there's no lock or anything. She can actually see them from the cash register, doesn't care at all. So I was like, so it's not about public safety. You just wanted the historical society. so you could sell your wares out of an official building in town. But we didn't have time to stop to talk about that because a lot was happening in the episode. So I'm like, when did it become
Etsy
at commerce? Yes.
Just like what? Okay. Enjoy whatever money you're gonna make off of postcards and keychains.
But like that's what she's just a hustler. She don't care about what's going on in the town as far as the parents who don't believe in supernatural or think it's too dangerous for her to be around. She just wants money. And that was a major flip that came out of nowhere.
So as far as she's concerned, she can control the supernatural, and she doesn't want Bess saving people from it. She doesn't want them exposing it. She thinks the supernatural can be used fine if it's under her control. So now she basically has not control of the Sin Eater, but she won't let anyone save Tristan. So I feel like, is she the big bad we're going forward? Is she really even that big of a bad? Because like Bess could just twinkle her out of existence and nobody would shed a tear. Where are we going? There's 2 episodes left.
It's just weird. This whole episode was just weird. There's a lot going on. To wrap up things, I feel like it made more of a mess. George and Nick were arguing all episode too about how the girls were getting the items that Bess needed. He was very much in the vein of they shouldn't be stealing. And granted, I enjoyed the dad thing of it all. There's this great moment, Reed, where he catches the girls and he's like outside now, and he knows one of the youngest ones is on the step because he calls her name and then she comes down the step and he's like, you two, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this. He's very much a dad, and he even talks to that same one about like why he's arguing with George, because the Judge Abbott wants to sacrifice himself for Nancy because now that he knows about everything that he did, he feels really guilty, and hasn't been able to settle, and George wasn't taking his call, so he offered to present a sin to the mirror so that the Sin Eater would come after him instead of Nancy. And George was like, solid idea, let's do it. And Nick was like, it's not a life for a life. We're not doing that. She's like, well, the man wants to. I didn't suggest it to him. He's like, but if you don't stop him from doing it, then you're just as bad. And she called him Moses because that's where they were in the Seder at the time. And then her sister comes over and she explains that Moses led the people. He stood by his principles and he did the thing. And shouldn't you do that? Shouldn't you like see where George is coming from, but also find another way? And he was like, yeah. And the entire time I was like, all that is true. That's young Moses, older Moses. Did not make it to the promised land, which is not the point of the story. But I was, I did sit there like, yeah, but Moses didn't make it to the promised land though. He did eventually disobey. That was like the whole thing. That was the lesson after he did everything. Let me not go right into Bible study. Let me just move on past that because that's not where we are. But I did have to pause and be like, that's not, okay, fine. I guess we'll go with set my people free. Let my people go, Moses.
I feel like maybe I'm on Georgia's side. I'm like, let's wrap this up.
I kind of was too. Like, I thought what she just wanted was for Judge Abbott to be a distraction. Not that she was willing to let this man die, just that they could take the heat off of Nancy and figure out what they're going to do. And I get why they had Nick do what he did, but it's also like, couldn't he have just provided another way? Because there's also a subplot of them not seeing eye to eye because he was going on a road trip with Jade and George felt
there's
bad
a lot
about
happening. My goodness.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe we just leave Nick out of the loop sometimes. We stop running things past him.
They tried, but the girls can't lie. Like the girls are like very fishy in front of him, and he's like, I know my kids are doing something illegal. I'm gonna find out what it is.
Yeah, and I saw the whole George and Nick conflict coming from a mile off because she said early on about something about redemption. Some people aren't worthy of redemption, and Nick's face just dropped. Tell me you don't really believe that. And so he's like, okay, they're going to butt heads over this. Of course, Judge Abbott comes in, wants to sacrifice himself. It gives him the perfect thing to catalyst for that conflict, and it all blows up. George did make a good point because Nick was like, you're letting this man sacrifice himself. You're taking away his chance of redemption. And George was like, yes, but if I talked him out of it, I would then be choosing him over Nancy, which is the exact same thing. It's not my decision. I shouldn't be put in the decision where I have to choose one life over another. So George chose inaction over action. And I'm like, none of this conversation's right. None of these
Very
people are in the right.
philosophy.
But yeah, it's very philosophical for a subplot of an episode that was all about subplots.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Is it bad that I would have been like, go ahead, Abbott?
Obviously, in the end, he didn't have to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, well, and also I think that like the point was for Nick to see George's side of things. That he was being too stringent. Like, he's our noble hero, but sir, sometimes
I know.
we
I
just
love that
gotta let
about him,
out.
but I'm like, sometimes we got to meet some people at their level.
Mm-hmm. And he really felt taken to task because she reminded him that Judge Abbott assaulted somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And not, no, he didn't. So he covered up an assault. So she's like, "You're not a good dude. I don't feel bad. Peace." Like, that was her.
It was like, it's like in, oh, I don't want to spoil Outer Banks for everybody, but it reminds me of a certain somebody who sacrificed themselves to save everybody. It was like, thank you. We still hate you, but thank you.
Oh, I feel like that's an excellent segue into Heartstopper.
Yes, let's lighten it up.
Yes. So, like, just to wrap Nancy Drew up real quick, we didn't really like the episode, y'all, but if y'all enjoyed it, we're happy for you. We got 2 more episodes left. Hopefully the penultimate episode gives in the finale makes us cry.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers. We're hoping. We're reaching.
Fingers crossed. I'll let everybody know what I thought next week.